In this video, you will be trying to speedrun the biggest challenge mod for Don't Starve Together. I'm talking, of course, about Uncompromising Mode. Uncompromising Mode reworks all the core aspects of the game. A majority of the items, seasons, enemies, and bosses have all been adjusted. Anything overpowered is nerfed to the ground, and most items which are otherwise useless are buffed to be relevant. Additionally, many enemies and bosses gain fresh new attacks and gimmicks, which cannot be found elsewhere. But not only that, the mod also adds many new layers of content, including new enemies, biomes, and even bosses. In this video, I'll be attempting to kill all the bosses as fast as I can in this unforgiving and challenging environment, while highlighting as many of the mod's features as I can. That being said, Uncompromising Mode adds far too much content for me to cover everything in one video, so I'll only be able to cover things that are relevant to our run. Also, since this video is incredibly long, I'll be leaving timestamps everywhere in case you'd like to skip around or something. That being said, this run is incredibly action-packed, so there will be very few slow moments where we aren't fighting something. One last thing before we get started, we need to talk about the character we will be playing. This is Wolfgang, and he's been the most optimal choice for many speedruns in vanilla due to his powerful 2x damage multiplier and his ability to lift heavy objects like it's nothing. Well, I'm here to tell you that almost everything you thought you knew about him has changed, as he's received a massive rework recently. The rework is made by Toroic, and it drastically changes the way his mightiness meter, mighty form, and skill tree work. Wolfgang has a new mechanic called Feats of Strength, which consumes points from his mightiness meter to use. The 3 feats of strength are Mighty Work, Mighty Strike, and Mighty Leap. Also, yes, this means that the mightiness is a resource that Wolfgang spends to perform these feats of strength. The actual mighty form, on the other hand, is a completely separate mechanic. Wolfgang's mighty form depends on his current hunger, which is capped at 300 instead of 200. Mighty Work replaces the random critical hits you can do when mining trees or mining boulders. Instead, you're guaranteed to crit in your mighty form as long as you have enough mightiness points to spend. You will be putting 5 insight points into the Mighty Work, so this skill becomes half as expensive. Next, we have Mighty Strikes, which can be performed by right-clicking an enemy. A Mighty Strike will deal double the damage you normally would have done, so in Mighty form, the hit will deal 4x damage instead of just 2x. We won't be putting anything into the Mighty Strike skill tree because I need my points for my favorite feat of strength, and that would be the Mighty Leap, which allows us to jump a fixed distance at the cost of 50 mightiness points. This is by far my favorite thing on Wolfgang, so I will be putting 5 insight points into the leg day skills, which make this cost 50% less and have half the cooldown. This leaves us with 5 insight points left. I will be putting 3 of them into the push the limit skills to increase our maximum mightiness to 130 instead of 100. This will be helpful because it lets us store up more mightiness than normal. Mightiness isn't as easy to get in Uncompromising Mode because we no longer gain it from working or fighting. Instead, we can passively gain or lose it based on how our hunger and sanity are doing. Lastly, I'll be putting my last 2 insight points into the Shadow Affinity skills. The Affinity skills no longer give Wolfgang a flat damage boost against the opposite alignment. Instead, it drastically changes many of Wolfgang's mechanics. The first one is the Faustian Bargain, which allows us to be in mighty form permanently. This comes with the downside of having 75 less max health and being stuck with a 50% faster hunger drain. This is a price I'm willing to pay though, because I might not be able to keep my hunger topped off for every boss we face. The second one is Shadow Mastery, which brings our damage multiplier from 200% to 150%, which is a decrease. However, every hit we land in a row will increase that number by 20%, up to 250%, which is higher than normal. This means that if we can avoid getting hit as much as possible, we will be rewarded with an absurdly high damage multiplier. Anyways, that's everything. Sorry the intro took so long. Without further ado, let's get started with the actual run. It's time to generate our world. I'll be using a few quality of life mods throughout the playthrough, so it's not going to be an official speedrun or anything. I also like to turn off events because I feel like they get quite annoying. This run was live streamed on the YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see the chat in the bottom right corner. Up until now, I've had to regenerate the world a couple times because we kept getting twiggy trees instead of saplings. Although it's not the end of the world if we get twiggy trees, I'd much rather have saplings because it's easier to farm them. Anyways, let's talk about the current objective for the first couple of days. I really need to gather up on basic resources and also find living logs because I want to rush the ruins as soon as possible. I really want to get my hands on some ruins equipment right away because it will help accelerate me for the entirety of the run. The faster I can get these items, the better, which is why it's really nice that I can get resources super quickly. Since I found the mosaic right away, I was able to collect all the gold and rocks I needed for a while. All that was left was to find a forest and some living logs. On my way out of the mosaic biome, I managed to get my hands on some marble and spiders. I'm killing spiders because I want to get my hands on a piggyback. The piggyback doesn't slow down Wolfgang, and we're going to need every bit of inventory space that we can get. I'm also going to be checking out every sinkhole I can find, so I can map out the caves and find the ruins faster. Luckily for us, we managed to find the forest biome right away. Because of this, I was able to collect all the resources I need for the ruins by day 2. Once I finished crafting everything, I found myself some living logs and went straight into the caves. On our way to the ruins, I made sure to dig up as many mushrooms as I could find. I normally don't recommend doing this because in uncompromising mode, digging up mushrooms will leave behind a spore instead of another mushroom. However, we are in a hurry and we can't be waiting for them to come out. Luckily for us, we found the muddy biome very quickly. The first thing I did was kill some slurtles because I wanted to get myself a shelmet. Killing slurtles is very worthwhile in uncompromising mode because they have half HP and a much higher shelmet drop rate. The shelmet only provides 85% protection instead of the original 90%. This is better than the football helmet, so it should be good enough. It didn't take long for us to find the entrance to the ruins, and since we're able to jump across gaps, you're able to traverse the area very easily. Things have been going very smoothly so far, but unfortunately for us, we showed up just as the nightmare phase began, which caused us some problems. Right from the get-go, we had a lot of nightmare creatures to deal with. I need to kill these things without getting touched by the depth seal, which is an electric mob added by uncompromising mode. Getting hit by or attacking the eel without rain protection will shock me, which would be very dangerous. Our healing and food going into this is very limited, so our ruins trip needs to be quick. Everything spoils 50% faster in UM, so if we take too long, everything goes downhill very quickly. Getting past the monkeys and shadows was pretty easy, but we weren't in the clear just yet. Right ahead of us, a new enemy was waiting. This creature is the Ancient Trepidation, a mini-boss that roams the ruins during Nightmare Phase. The Trepidation has 3000 health, in a very basic kiting pattern. It also has an ability to make itself invincible, similar to how the ancient Fuelweaver works. To bypass this, we just need to take down its legs. The boss doesn't really drop anything besides nightmare fuel, but that's mainly because it's only there to add another layer of difficulty to the nightmare phase. Anyways, it's time to cook up our food and head deeper into the ruins. I want to get my hands on a pseudo-science station right away, so I can craft a medallion and locate the ancient guardian. Luckily for us, the labyrinth turned out to be right next to us. Let's get over there right away. Before I forget, I should probably talk about this weird shadow eye thing. For those of you new to uncompromising mode, this is the Dread Eye, one of 2 new nightmare creatures added to the game. This nightmare creature disguises as the terrain around you and attacks by teleporting directly on top of you. It's pretty annoying to deal with, but nowhere near as dangerous as the other nightmare creature. But we can talk about that one later. Instead, let's talk about what's right in front of us. These are pawns, and we've been avoiding them up until now. There are regular pawns and damaged pawns. Walking too close to them will trigger them. The regular ones are located in the same biome that the monkeys are. When triggered, the regular pawn creates walls around you and spawns in clockwork amalgamations. We'll talk about what those are later. The damaged ones, however, infest the labyrinth, and they are way deadlier. That's because they run up to you and explode, dealing 200 damage instantly, which is something we cannot afford to let happen. A good way to deal with these things is to bring an ice staff and force them to explode from a safe distance. In this case, however, we simply don't have the time to get one, but we also don't need to. Thanks to the Wolfgang rework, we can just jump across the gaps and pretty much avoid all the pawns. With all of that said and done, we finally reached the arena for our first boss fight. The Ancient Guardian is the perfect choice to start off our run, since he's relatively easy both to reach and fight. That being said, this isn't your normal Ancient Guardian boss fight. You'll soon notice that this boss has received several adjustments from its vanilla counterpart. Phase 1 is pretty tame, but the Ancient Guardian is also able to leap, like it does in Phase 2. Phase 2 is where things get interesting, because he gains 2 new attacks, and his jump gets upgraded. His first move is to vomit out a ton of shadow blobs, which can turn into tentacles. Don't get hit by this, because it will damage and blind you. And this is his other move, unlocked at the 3000 HP milestone, along with shadow blobs. He also vomits out a shadow heart, which completely protects the Guardian until destroyed. And just like that, the first of many bosses has been taken down. We've still got a long road ahead of us, since not all of them will be this easy. By the way, check out the loot we got from this guy. Not only did we get a Lazy Explorer, which makes the entire early game 2 times easier, but we also got pretty much all the gems we will ever need. Now we just need to mine a few ancient statues, craft some stuff, and get out of here. This is a commingled clockwork, one of the 3 new special clockwork variants added by the mod. This is pretty much what you'd get if you were to combine a knight and a bishop together. It's not too difficult for us to beat, especially since we're playing Mighty Wolfgang. Our shopping list before we leave will be 2 Star Color staffs, a deconstruction staff, every single amulet variant, and then I want a pick slash axe and as many crowns as I can make. Oh, I also need a relic chair blueprint too, because we will be needing it for Pro's tasks. Now that we've gotten everything we need, it's time for us to leave the ruins. But we aren't done with the caves just yet. On our way out, there's another boss fight waiting for us. That's right, we're fighting the Nightmare Werepig right here and right now. Let's waste no time and get started with our second boss fight. The Nightmare Werepig is one of the few bosses that are untouched in Uncompromising Mode. Since we reach and maintain our 2.5x damage multiplier with Wolfgang's Shadow Affinity, we are going to absolutely shred this boss. Although we could pretty much finish him off right here, we still need the Werepig to destroy the pillars for us, because getting the Dreadstone is mandatory for this run. This boss is pretty important for us to take care of early, because we can use Dreadstone armor to completely carry our early game. Anyways, with that out of the way, it's time for us to head back to the surface. We've got a lot of things to do, but very little time to do them. First thing I'm gonna do is drop all of our stuff off at the base, so I can clear my inventory. As of right now, we don't really have much of a base going for us, so we need to load ourselves up with a ton of basic resources. We also don't really know where anything is, so we need to explore the entire map as well. Fortunately for us, we can do both at the same time. I'll be bringing a Magiluminescence and Lazy Forager with me, so I can accomplish both these goals simultaneously. I can walk around the map really quickly with my Lazy Explorer and Magiluminescence, and I can swap to my Lazy Forager as I'm walking by resources, so I can easily loot them as I'm passing by. This is only possible because Uncompromising Mode buffs the Lazy Forager by allowing it to harvest directly from plants, as well as the items on the ground. Because of this, the Lazy Forager is now an insanely crucial item to our speedrun, since it will save us so much time from picking grass and twigs. It's honestly one of my favorite features in UM. Just look at how much I gathered in one day, while running at full speed uncovering the map. Anyways, the run had been going very smoothly so far. We managed to explore the map very quickly, not only because of our items, but also because we were able to jump across gaps fairly easily. We kept exploring until we bumped into the biome that we were looking for. This is the Hooded Forest, a beautiful Uncompromising Mode exclusive biome. We will come back to it later. For those of you who don't know, that biome replaces the Moonstone Forest that's guaranteed to spawn in every world. The Hooded Forest is filled to the brim with many points of interest, and has tons of unique items and mobs. I won't be able to go into too much detail in this video, since this is a speedrun video after all. Instead, let's get some quick silk by clearing the local spiders. I made myself a tent so I could quickly fix my health and sanity before our next boss fight. Sleeping is buffed in UM to be 50% more efficient, so I will be taking advantage of this as much as possible. Now that we've recovered ourselves, it's time to go straight into the biome that I was talking about earlier. We are ready to fight one of the 4 bosses added by Uncompromising Mode itself, and time is ticking, so let's get started right away. This is the Hooded Widow, a raid boss with 8,000 health and a powerful sanity aura. The key to beating this boss is to do it quickly. Her attacks are pretty simple, so I'll let you see them for yourself. At this point, I should probably explain why I chose to do this boss fight now, instead of something else. You see all those silky cocoons? Inside all of them are different creatures normally found within the constant. Those cocoons are normally indestructible, unless you happen to have the Widow's Claw, which is dropped by the boss we just killed. By opening up these cocoons, we gain tons of food, silk, and other valuable miscellaneous items. Everything I'm getting from this fight is useful to me, especially for the next boss on our list. On my way out, I'm making sure to harvest a decent amount of these large ferns because of a special crockpot dish that I'd like to make. The dish in question is the steamed ham. This food is identical in stats to pierogies. However, it spoils several times faster. The dish requires 1 raw meat, 1 fern, and 1.5 veggies to cook, which happens to be all the ingredients we've gotten from the Hooded Widow, besides the veggies, which I'll get from picking carrots on the way back. We're also going to need to improve the base a little more, since we don't even have crockpots in the first place. Let's burn some trees to fix that problem. By the way, earlier that night, something very important happened. This is a moon tier, an item that has a 50% chance of spawning during full moons. It's not a requirement for this run at all, but it will become very convenient later down the line. The next boss on our list is Bee Queen, and she is a little more dangerous than the first 3 bosses we've fought, which is why I'm making sure to prepare healing foods beforehand. I'll also be using a special weapon called the Bug Zapper, which I crafted using the saffron feathers we got from the Hooded Widow. The Bug Zapper is an electric weapon that does bonus damage plus an AoE effect against bees, which will be very convenient for this fight. You can see I planned this route very well. Pretty much everything we've gotten from the Hooded Widow is enabling us to fight the Bee Queen right now. Oh, and I almost forgot, Bee Queen has been completely reworked in Uncomp, and that's merely an understatement. This Bee Queen you are about to see is unrecognizable from vanilla. Can't go into too much depth because we're starting now. This Bee Queen has several new types of bees that she throws at you. These ones are bomber bees, and they bombard you from the sky. The Lazy Explorer lets us dodge them pretty reliably, which is why it's really lucky that we got one. It's time for phase 2, which means the Bee Queen will unleash several waves of bomber bees at a time. She also starts using blocker bees as well, which circle a boss and limit the angles we can attack her from. Here comes phase 3, where she begins to spawn dangerous bullet bees. These things fire one stinger each before dying, so all I have to do is dodge them. I do have to be careful though, because if I mess up here, I will take loads of damage. We've made it to the 4th and final stage. I've done a really good job at kiting overall, so it seems like I over-prepared in healing quite a bit this time. I mostly just wanted a failsafe, in case I messed up with the bullet bees, which I often do. That fight went a lot smoother than I anticipated. I still have a bunch of steamed hams left over, but we unfortunately won't be able to make much use of them, since they're about to go stale. But it's fine though. I really wanted to get Bee Queen out of the way early for 2 reasons. First, I now have access to bundle wraps, so I can preserve all the extra food I have, so I can spend less time worrying about feeding myself and instead spend it on killing bosses. Secondly, we now have enough jelly beans to keep us sufficiently healed up for the entirety of the run. Anyways, the next step for us will be to continue exploring the map. We still haven't found all the marble pieces, and we also have no idea where either deserts are. I'm picking all the tallbird eggs I can find and leaving them on the ground. I don't have the inventory space to take them home with me, but by doing this, the nest can continue producing eggs even while I'm gone. This is a very important part of my strategy, and you will see how we can take advantage of this later. I'm doing this a little later than I should be, since I forgot to, but I need to set up some drying racks real quick. Drying racks are very optimal for this run, because they are very cheap to set up once you obtain a lazy forager. We will also have plenty of meat to convert into jerky, since we are always fighting something. Jerky will be a godsend in this run, because of how long it lasts, and how good it is at restoring health and sanity. It took us quite a while to find the bishop piece, but after 4 days, we finally got it. We decided to take it directly to base, since I can just bring it with me when we're actually fighting the boss. From there I grabbed my jerky and went straight towards the dragonfly. The dragonfly fight is very similar to vanilla, the biggest difference being that building walls against lava won't work, because they will explode and destroy them. Fortunately for us, we are playing Wolfgang, so killing the lava with our bare hands is still an option. Anyways, that's enough talking. Let's get started with our boss fight. That fight went pretty well, and our armor barely took any damage. The dragonfly fight is pretty close to vanilla, but the same can't be said about the loot. Uncompromising Mode's dragonfly drops 3 scales instead of 1, and most items that use scales to be crafted are buffed. Anyways, it's really nice that we got this boss out of the way now, because the loot will make the upcoming winter significantly easier. I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the mod tweaks the seasons, so it's time we began talking about it. Winter is a bit more serious in Uncompromising Mode, particularly because thermal stones have been severely nerfed. I won't get into too much detail, but long story short, winter clothing is mandatory for us to stay warm. Fortunately for us, we've already made a beefalo hat several days ago, so we are prepared for this. Since it's day 21, I want to fight the shadow pieces tonight. While I waited for nighttime, I decided to grab some rabbits for a prestidigitator. After that was done, I chopped some trees, grabbed my jerky, and took the bishop head with me to the marble statues. I'll be doing the shadow piece fight in the same order that most people do. We're doing knight, bishop, and then rook. The only change brings to this fight is to the shadow bishop, which attacks completely differently. Other than that, there's not much more to talk about. Enjoy the fight. Instead of teleporting directly on top of you, the Shadow Bishop will repeatedly teleport to the side and charge at you in a straight line. This makes the Bishop actually kiteable, but it also means it is untargetable for longer and can land more hits on you if you aren't careful. The Shadow Pieces fight drops a pretty cool new item, rather than the Knight Armor and Dark Sword. This is the Shadow Crown, and we unfortunately won't be using it for this run. This head slot item gives the player a movement speed boost similar to the walking cane, but it increases damage taken, and it also has a sanity drain as well. Anyways, without wasting any more time, I need to get a tree guard to spawn as fast as possible. I'm planning to... Oh wow, that was fast. As I was saying though, I need dark swords badly, because I want to fight the Twins of Terror tonight. Now that it's winter, the nights are a little longer, meaning that this is the perfect time to fight this boss. I want to get my hands on the Shield of Terror right away, because it will be the perfect weapon for a majority of the run. The Dark Sword is necessary for this fight, because we need as much DPS as we can possibly get. Not only is the night still relatively short, but fighting two enemies at the same time is not something we can do for very long. Also yes, the Twins of Terror have been given a decent rework. Both the Retinazer and Spasmatism gain new attacks, but they are also less cheesable because they are harder to separate. The only thing left for us to do is wait for night to start and begin the fight. The Spasmatism is easier to kill, so we will be focusing it first. This is because the blue flames, otherwise known as cursed flames, are easier to dodge than the Retinazer's new attack. The fight isn't too bad if you pay close attention to both twins at all times. You can tell when they are about to perform their ranged attack by the flashing light. Since we barely got hit, we were able to take out the Spasmatism very quickly. Now we just have to finish off the Retinazer, and the Shield of Terror is ours. It's too bad that we couldn't finish it in a single night, but we got surprisingly close. Let's skip right ahead to the second night. Doing the twins here and now was pretty important for this speedrun, because the Shield of Terror is reworked in Uncompromising Mode. The shield has more than double the durability, a very noticeable damage increase, and the damage resistance of a Shelmet. However, negative values in foods fed to the shield will lower the durability it restores instead of increasing it. You'll see what I mean by this later. Before we continue though, let's quickly take a step back to what we were doing before the second night started. I decided to run off to the nearby deciduous forest, where I could sell my wires, kill some cactuns, and coincidentally, locate the cloth sack. While warming myself up, I decided to check out the mosaic biome with the little time I had left, in hopes that I could find myself the no-eyed deer. And it worked. I got the antler and made it back to the terrarium just in time. And now we are back to the present day. I decided to kill a Mactusk for some reason, go down into the caves to refuel our lantern, then go fight Klaus right away. The Klaus fight is unchanged in Uncompromising Mode, but he drops a new item that will be very important for an upcoming fight. Without further ado, let's begin. This fight is about to get colder because a snowstorm is approaching. Every 4 days during winter, we will experience a snowstorm, which will reduce our movement speed by 60% and limit our field of vision. However, the dwarf star we placed recently will minimize these effects. So long as we continue fighting near it, we shouldn't have any problems. Oh yeah, and Krampus is a lot stronger too. Phase 1 is down. We just need to survive the second phase. With Klaus out of the way, that takes care of all of the early game bosses that I wanted to fight. The next step for us will be to begin our preparations for the late game. One of the two biggest goals in the run is to activate the Lunar Rifts before Bearger spawns, because if we don't, this run will take forever. At this point you might be wondering why our game plan wasn't to rush the Celestial Champion in the first place, since it would enable us to kill Crystal Deerclops in the first winter, rather than the second. The reason for this is very simple, it's because there's no point. Remember how I mentioned that Uncompromising Mode adds 4 bosses to the game? The Hooded Widow was one of them, but we haven't seen the other 3 yet. All you really need to know right now is that 2 of the 3 remaining bosses only spawn during the summer. The biggest issue here is that both of them cannot spawn in the same season, which means that the physical limit of this run will be the very beginning of the second summer. This is why trying to kill Crystal Deerclops in the first winter is pointless, because we will have 2 winters regardless. On that note, let's talk about what's next on our list. The next full moon will be on the 31st, so we have to obtain our iridescent gem on that night. Until then, we have several days to kill, because right now, we are doing far better than I had anticipated. I decided that until then, I could explore the ocean and find all the points of interest I'd need. On day 27, we set sail, and thanks to some help I got from chat, we found the Lunar Island just before night hit. We spent a little over a day on the island, gathering rocks and moon rocks for Pearl's quests. I also assembled the Celestial Altar pieces so that I wouldn't have to later. Afterwards, we managed to get ourselves a Tam O'Shanter, stopped by our base to drop off our items, and spent a few minutes exploring the caves before deciding that this wasn't the right time to do this. Sounds like Deerclops is making an appearance. I guess it's time for us to start the 9th boss fight of the run. Uncompromising Mode has 3 variants of Deerclops. This one has a powerful alternate attack, so make sure to respect it. Now that we've gotten him to half HP, his alternate attack upgrades into a leap. This attack is very dangerous, because you'd be frozen and hit several times before you even have a chance to walk away. Uncompromising Mode or not, Deerclops will always be an easy boss fight. Anyways, with that out of the way, it's time to prepare for the Moonstone event. The next full moon is happening tonight, so I'm bringing a bunch of stone walls with me to the Hooded Forest. We just need to set up the walls, and we're good. Also, this might be a good time for me to explain what this moon tier item we saw earlier was. As I said during the previous full moon, this item has a 50% chance of spawning during full moons, and it is very useful to us. Why? Because we can socket this thing into the Moonstone and get an iridescent gem back. It's very RNG reliant to expect this to spawn though, so I still went ahead with the Star Color Staff as well. What this basically means for us is that we won't have to deconstruct our Moon Color Staff, which will be very convenient later on. Overall, the Moonstone event went very well. We were rudely interrupted by a Magtusk, but after dispatching of him, we got our hands on the Mooncaller staff. From there, it was time for us to begin our journey towards unleashing the Lunar Rifts. We will need to visit the archives and collect an astral detector, which we will then use to excavate the Celestial Sanctum pieces, so that we can find the Crab King. Of course, we will also need to complete 10 of Pearl's tasks as well, so we better get started right away. Without another second to waste, we went straight into the caves and began looking for the blue mushroom biome. We checked the first tentapillar we saw and ended up getting extremely lucky. From there, we activated the archives and completed the memory puzzle. As it turns out, I used the wrong colored fountain for some reason, so I had to do it a second time. I checked another tentapillar on the way back, hoping that it revealed where the atrium was. No luck this time, but I still count this as progress towards finding it. Anyways, we made it back to base just before winter ended and crafted all the spring clothing we will need. Besides the umbrella, I also made a raincoat, which is buffed in Uncompromising Mode. Afterwards, I continued by using the Lazy Forager to harvest basic resources while I located the Celestial Sanctum pieces, since I was beginning to run low on them. Almost forgot the lightning rod. We also need to gather a few items we still need for Pearl's quests. Berry bushes, for example. I also started catching as many butterflies as I could, but before long, we bumped into the Moose Goose. I was just walking by with the Celestial Sanctum piece when I decided to stop by and get this boss off my list. The Moose Goose gains a jump attack in Uncompromising Mode, but we can just dodge it by running forwards. The Moose Goose is easy as always. Of course, I made sure to finish off the babies before heading back to base. I can't miss out on the down feathers or food. I'm gonna be needing as much as I can get. Getting back on topic, we are still missing a few items for Pearl's house, mainly the cookie cutter shells, so it's time for us to continue exploring the ocean. My plan was to sail around the mainland until I randomly bumped into a salt biome. Instead, we found the location of both Frostjaw and Crab King in a single day. After taking a quick stop to catch butterflies and pick up the celestial icon I left behind, we managed to find the biome that we were looking for. Getting the shells was easy, but since the boat ended up far away from the lunar island, I decided it would be quicker to just abandon it and bring the celestial icon closer to base. We now have pretty much everything we need to complete all of Pearl's quests in a single trip. I just need to gather a few more basic items and fit everything into my piggyback and Chester. As we were about to head off to Pearl's Island, we got ourselves caught in some heavy rain. Heavy rain is a mechanic added by Uncompromising Mode, and it is caused by tornadoes. During spring, a tornado will spawn somewhere in your world and begin moving in random directions. Everywhere in a large radius around the tornado is heavy rain, which requires 150% wetness protection to even stay dry. Not even an umbrella is good enough for it. Not only that, but heavy rain also causes magic lightning to strike very frequently, which can be very dangerous if we are stuck on a boat. For that reason, I took a quick detour until the tornado was out of our way. But as we were heading back to base, we were confronted by the next threat. This is the Mother Goose, a seasonal boss added by Uncompromising Mode. The Mother Goose spawns near the player, the same way that Deerclops and Bearger work for their respective seasons. Don't confuse this boss with Moose Goose, because it is several times stronger. I'm just gonna quickly drive myself off before starting this fight. Not only does the Mother Goose have 6,000 health, but it also has several other new perks. For starters, getting hit by the boss will knock you in the air, meaning that dodging her attacks is very crucial. Once you get her below around 4,000 health, she will begin spawning these miniature tornadoes. I like to step away from this attack and just wait it out, because it's very hard to dodge them. Laying an egg during the fight is crazy, but that won't stop me from orphaning these children. Oh yeah, and getting Mother Goose below 2,000 health will make lightning strike like crazy. This would have been extremely dangerous to fight if it weren't for my raincoat. Mother Goose is definitely a lot more dangerous than the Moose Goose, but Mighty Wolfgang still makes it feel easy. Anyways, that marks the end of our short detour. We go straight to Pearl's Island from here. In order to progress on the Celestial Champion questline, we need to complete 10 of Pearl's tasks. 3 tasks are taken care of when we fully build her house. Then we can fill up her drying racks, plant 10 flowers, 8 berry bushes, and kill the hazardous lure plant for 4 easy tasks. For the last 3 tasks, I'll be picking trash, building her a brand new chair, and giving her an umbrella since it should be raining when I get there. Everything was going great until I made a terrible mistake. As I was managing my inventory, I decided to drop my rot on the floor, not realizing that the rain was going to quickly wash it away. This put me in a very awkward situation, because it meant that I wouldn't be leaving the island with the Pearl today. Nevertheless, I still did all the tasks that I could. It also didn't help that it stopped raining the very moment I tried to give Pearl an umbrella. Because of this, there's still 2 tasks that we haven't completed. I definitely could have avoided this, but at this point it's just a skill issue. This mistake was devastating, and it took us 5 whole days just to come back and complete the tasks that we missed. We didn't waste that time doing nothing though. During those couple of days, we managed to farm several goat horns, dig up a bunch of graves, and do some other stuff. Once I finally obtained the Pearl's Pearl, I went straight to base so that I could gear up for one of the riskiest fights that we are about to take. But first, we need to pay a quick visit to the Melancholic Skull, which is located near spawn. The Melancholic Skull allows us to accept the Veteran's Curse by touching it, which allows us to use special items dropped by certain bosses, at the cost of an increase in damage taken and a passive hunger drain. Up until now, I have had no reason to take on that burden. But up against Crab King, there's a certain cursed item that I really want to use. Specifically, I want the Knotlock, which I acquired through killing Klaus back in winter. The Knotlock is essentially a DPS booster, worn in the body slot. The item allows the wearer to attack twice as fast, but with each secondary attack dealing only 50% of the physical damage. The doubled attack speed lets us both kill it faster, but also cancel out its healing ability more reliably. This item is especially important because this run was filmed before the Crab King rework dropped, which means that we have to fight the version that everyone knows and hates. The Crab King itself has also been decently reworked, but none of that really matters anymore because Clay reworked the boss themselves, so this fight is going to be very outdated. Here's a basic outline on what Uncompromising Mode did to this boss, and feel free to pause if you need a second to read it. Also, if you'd like to see one of the most unique methods of fighting Crab King that ever used to exist, make sure to check out the WX78 series I made, or you could just skip ahead to the fight if you're curious. Anyways, shameless self-plug over. Let's get started with the fight. After getting the shark out of the way, of course. Blue gems are the best for the strategy that I'm going with, but since I only had 5 of them, I had to bring a couple other ones with me. I've only practiced the fight with 8 blue gems, which means that we're going into uncharted territory right now. Wish me luck. The plan is simple, kill it fast, faster than it kills our boat. The Crab King in UM also has a cooldown mechanic where it is unable to fight back for about 10 seconds, giving us the perfect window of opportunity to shred its health bar. However, the attack it does after the cooldown is over is very dangerous. That right there was a disaster. Not only did my boat get completely ravaged by the boulders, but I can't even stop the Crab King from healing himself since I got pushed so far away. Reason? Please, bro. Oh my god. Oh my god. I cannot believe that. Bro, this couldn't have been closer. It really couldn't have gotten closer than that. One more hit and our hopes and dreams were gone. Anyways, let's recover the Celestial Tribute and... oh no. So close. Imagine if that random claw took down our boat right there. We gotta get out of here immediately. I gotta get off this death trap and make it back to base. We now have all the pieces we need to summon the mysterious energy, but we are not gonna do it just yet. We can't. Not until we defeat a certain boss first. The boss in question is the Wilting Dragonfly, the seasonal giant for summer added by Uncompromising Mode. The reason why we have to wait is because unleashing the mysterious energy will cause every single night to become a full moon, which will disrupt the spawning of the Wilting Dragonfly. We first have to wait until she spawns, then defeat her before we can activate the moonstorms. Otherwise, we risk extending the length of the run to be longer than it needs to. Meanwhile, I'm gonna spend some time collecting all the fossil fragments needed for the ancient Fuelweaver. I also searched the caves for as long as I could, trying to see if I could find the atrium as well. And we found it. Nice. Now I can fight the Fuelweaver right after I'm done with the Celestial Champion. On my way out, I'm making sure to kill as many Slurtles as I can, because the Thuloside crowns I made back during autumn were getting very low, so I'll be using these for the Celestial Champion instead. Taking a look at my base, it's very clear that we don't have any ice flingamatics here. If you've never played Uncompromising Mode before, you might be wondering why. To put it shortly, the summer season is completely reworked in UM. Wildfires will only happen during an event called heat waves, which only happen every couple of days. During heat waves, wildfires are very frequent, but they can only target plants. They never happen on structures, which means that if we chopped every tree near our base, then we should be good. But not too good though, because fires are a lot more serious during the summers. I say this because fires emit a hazardous, thick smog, which rapidly decreases any nearby player's maximum health. That shouldn't be too much of a problem though. As long as we keep our distance from fires, we should be okay. Anyways, let's quickly take a trip to the deserts and collect a bunch of valuable cactus flowers so I can begin stocking up on powerful healing items. Thanks to the lazy forager, I'm able to harvest them quickly and safely. I don't really have the materials to make desert goggles right now, so I'll be using the cat eye goggles instead. While I'm already here, we may as well stop by the Antlion and get him out of the way so that he doesn't interfere with any future boss fights. The Antlion is unchanged in Uncompromising Mode, but the Oasis Desert is filled with these horrible scorpions. They are pretty annoying to shake off, and if you attack one of them, all of the others will aggro onto you. They also don't really drop anything useful, so I'm going to lead them away from the Antlion before running back to him. Without further ado, let's start the fight. Not really much of a fight, but that's usually how it goes with Antlion. Let's get back to base and begin preparations for the upcoming boss fights. Until the Wilting Dragonfly spawns, I'm gonna be preparing as many healing items as I can. There's a very nice Uncompromising Mode exclusive item that I'm aiming for, and it's called the Sweet Flower Wrap. This item is a combination of cactus flower and the honey poultice, and it restores 45 health along with another 15 over time. That's a total of 60 health gained from a non-perishable item. I'd say that's pretty good, especially since some of the next couple of bosses we have to face will be quite dangerous. I'm gonna be needing scrap to summon the Celestial Champion, so I might as well get it now. It's been a nice and peaceful couple of days getting everything together, but by the 62nd day, our brief moment of peace was put to an end. The Wilting Dragonfly is spawning, and I'm gonna fight it next to this beefalo herd so they can help make the fight easier. Plus, this is a great opportunity to stock up on a large amount of meat. Without further ado, let's get started. The Wilting Dragonfly has a lot less health than the raid boss variant, but it can deal way more damage. Plus, it also has several new fiery attacks in its arsenal. Fighting this boss is very tricky, so instead, my strategy is to take a much more aggressive approach and to kill it as fast as I can, since it has such a low health pool. That went about as well as expected, and now we have food for weeks. With the Wilting Dragonfly down, this puts us at the halfway point in terms of boss fights left. Also, it means that we can finally begin the main event. I rushed to base and went to sleep to restore my stats. Then, I bundled up everything I could before leaving for Lunar Island. That orange tint at the top of my screen indicates that the world is currently experiencing a heat wave, which is why all of the trees around my base have caught on fire. The smog is spreading everywhere, so it's best we don't stay here. I beeline to the Lunar Island, and within a day, the mysterious energy had finally been unleashed. The moonstorms are unchanged in Uncompromising Mode, so we just need to grab the usual items to summon the Celestial Champion. I didn't bother trying to get Astroggles, because I knew the cat eye goggles were good enough to complete this event. Getting the restrained static from Whackstaff wasn't too bad either. I was relying on the Shield of Terror to be my armor, which turned out to be very sketchy when I found out that the item doesn't protect you if you get put to sleep. Anyways, after the usual resource collecting, we gathered our shellmits, brought a couple foods, and went straight to Lunar. Unfortunately for us, it looks like our boat isn't gonna make it. That's a bit of a problem, but I'll just deal with it later. Right now, I have my sights set on the Celestial Champion. I just need to assemble the Lunar Siphonator, and we can get started. Hold up. There's an abnormally large amount of smog in my face right now. It seems like we got here just as another heat wave began happening. I guess we gotta make a decision. Do we stay and fight the boss regardless, or should we just play it safe and wait this out? It's whatever. I can probably just ignore it. Okay, this might have been a bit more smog than I thought. I can't even get close to it. Jeez, dude, I haven't even done anything and I've already lost 25 health. A bit of a rough start, but at least we can fight him now. The Celestial Champion is unchanged in Uncompromising Mode. Of course, I can't really say the same about the environment that I'm fighting it in. Our max health has been reduced so much that we barely have more than max swell does, but I still feel confident that we can win this regardless. I'm getting a really bad feeling from this fight. I haven't even been hit once, and yet I've lost access to nearly half of my maximum HP. I'm not gonna lie, this is starting to feel really dangerous. Oh my god. Get me off this island now. I cannot risk getting hit again. But my boat. I don't even have a boat waiting for me. I need to chop some trees. Fighting this guy during a heat wave was such a terrible idea. I can't believe I actually tried that. We need to hurry back. We gotta get back to our base and make ourselves a booster shot. Booster shots require red caps to make in UM, so it's a bit of a hassle, but I really have no other choice. I'm gonna quickly heal myself back up through sleeping, and then immediately go back to Lunar for round 2. There won't be clouds of smog covering the entire island this time, so this should go much better than it did the first time. Phase 1 is easy as always. Now on to Phase 2. So long as we are careful of the spinning attack, this phase should be easy as well. Not bad. Now it's time for the hardest phase, which also happens to be the one that I'm the worst at. That fight went very smoothly the second time around. I got a bit scared during that one moment where I got put to sleep twice in a row, but other than that, I think it went very well. Without wasting any time, I quickly gave up my Enlightened Shard to Whackstaff so he could activate the hard mode for the surface and unleash the rifts. Before I proceeded to go back to base, we were confronted with a small hound attack. These are Magma Hounds, by the way, one of the 4 seasonal hounds added by Uncompromising Mode. They're basically just walking flamethrowers, so if you dodge their fire, they don't really cause too much trouble. Anyways, let's get back to base and prepare for the next big boss fight on our list. We just defeated the final boss of the surface, so it's only fitting that we did the same for the caves. Of course, I'm talking about none other than the ancient Fuelweaver himself. The Lunar Rift is scheduled to appear starting from day 75, which means that we have to fight the armored Bearger in a handful of days. Although I could theoretically pull it off, I know that if I make one mistake about any sort of planar armor, that I would definitely be one shot. Especially since my Shadow Affinity reduces my max HP to be 125 instead of 200. I also know that getting Brightshade gear is way slower than it is to accumulate Void gear, which is why I'm in a bit of a hurry to unleash the Shadow Rifts. Everything I unlock by killing the Fuelweaver will pretty much guarantee our safety for the rest of the run, so it's pretty much a no-brainer. I'm spending a day getting all the materials I need together. I'll be using a combination of Marble Armor and the Bee Queen Crown for this fight. Marble Armor is perfect because the movement speed reduction doesn't really affect Wolfgang, and the Bee Queen Crown protects me from having sanity issues. I'll also be using Weather Panes to make this fight extremely easy. I don't have any other uses for the down feathers I got anyways. By the end of day 73, we were finally ready. We brought all of our items into the atrium and began searching for the arena. We bumped into a lot of dead ends, and although we could easily jump across many of the gaps, it still took us a while to actually find the ancient gateway. But what happened next was tragic. As it turns out, a waterfall had spawned right in the corner of the arena. This is an Uncompromising Mode feature, and these things are created during the tornadoes of spring. These waterfalls cause a bit of flooding to happen, making the floor very slippery to walk on, while also rapidly increasing your wetness. That waterfall flooded nearly the entire arena, and fighting the ancient Fuelweaver under these conditions is absolutely not happening. Because of this, I reluctantly decided to leave, because I have absolutely no clue how long these things are supposed to last. Instead, I decided that I wanted to take on a different boss, the Toadstool. I need to defeat both the regular and misery versions of Toadstool, because I consider them to be different boss fights. Therefore, the sooner I defeat the regular Toadstool, the faster I can fight the misery variant. The Toadstool fight is surprisingly cheap. I just need to craft a couple moon glass axes, using materials that I already have, as well as bring a stone pillar to make the fight significantly easier. I'll also be bringing 2 special items with me. The Knotlock is perfect for the Toadstool fight, because not only does it increase our DPS, but it also significantly reduces the durability cost of our weapon, because the secondary attacks don't use up any durability. Additionally, I'm also bringing the Goose mask, which I crafted specifically for this boss in particular. This item is very handy against Toadstool, because it gives us immunity to the spore clouds while we wear it. With this, I'll be able to maneuver around the boss so much easier. My primary weapon of choice will be the Shield of Terror, because of its high durability, and since it can protect me from getting instantly killed since I won't be wearing any other pieces of armor. I'm leaving a handful of very powerful crockpot dishes in an icebox nearby, so I can repair my shield whenever I need to. Or at least, that's what I would be doing if I didn't forget about it. Without further ado, let's begin the fight. The Toadstool fights are unchanged, if you ignore all the new items Uncompromising Mode leaves at your disposal. That was close. I forgot to put on my mask that one time, and I almost died. Let's not make that mistake again. That fight went incredibly well. The 2.5x damage multiplier provides so much value against boss fights like that, especially since we don't really get hit by Toadstool whatsoever. Anyways, let's head back to base and quickly grab some jerky. Toroic did some testing during our Toadstool fight, and he told me that the waterfall had definitely disappeared by now. Armed with this information, we hurried right back to the atrium to do what we had originally planned to do. Unfortunately for us, it started raining quite a lot in the caves, which meant that all the items I left on the ground were completely soaked in water. This means that if we were to fight the ancient Fuelweaver right now, we'd have an additional sanity drain to worry about, as well as the risk of our weapons slipping from our hands mid-fight. That being said, I did not come all this way just to chicken out again, so I socketed the key, put on my armor, and decided to risk it all, here and now. Just like the CC, the Fuelweaver fight is unchanged in Uncompromising Mode. The Glass Cutter, on the other hand, has a decent damage bonus against shadow-aligned enemies. I have to admit, my Fuelweaver skills are very lacking. It's a good thing that I have a bunch of powerful gear to make up for it though. Anyways, I quickly offered up the Dreadstone to Charlie, sat through the little animation, and went straight back to the surface. Since we upgraded the Ancient Gateway on day 78, that means day 83 marks the arrival of the Shadow Rifts, which will be our window of opportunity to acquire late game items before the Bearger comes for us. Now that it has been autumn for several days, none of the plants in the world were withered anymore, which meant that I could run around with the lazy forager and stock up on goodies once again. Once I made it back to base and sorted some stuff out, I made a sea fishing rod and went straight towards Frostjaw's little island. At this point, we still had a handful of raid bosses left here and there, so our current objective will be to go on a rampage and slaughter them all, and I figured the Frostjaw is a good place to start. This boss is completely untouched in UM as well, so it should be easy, especially with our newfound ability to jump. Frostjaw is one of the few bosses where the Mighty Leap is actually very beneficial. I wanted to experiment with it a bit, since I could definitely use the leap to position myself perfectly without slipping on the ice. There we go. I think I understand the timing now, so this fight is basically over. I forgot to mention this earlier, but you have to actually be careful when you use the Mighty Leap, because it could just send you straight into the water. Needless to say, I was having a lot of fun being able to actually use the jump during combat, but now we're stranded on Lunar Island with a lot of our items being missing. The situation isn't too bad though. I managed to scrape together enough materials to make an axe, and then a boat, so that I could sail back to Frostjaw's island and continue where we left off. The island was very close by, so it didn't take us too long, but damn, that was embarrassing. That fight ended up taking a bit more time than I was expecting, but it shouldn't really matter too much in the long run. From there, I sailed straight back to the mainland and gathered another quick handful of red caps, since drowning tanked my max health a bit. After fixing my health bar, I spent some time trying and failing miserably at getting a tree guard to spawn. Day 83 was right around the corner, which means the Shadow Rifts will be up soon. Therefore, we are going to have to pay our pseudoscience station another visit so that we can craft ourselves the Shadow Craft plinth. I wanted tree guards because I was fresh out of living logs, and I really wanted to bring back some deconstruction staves with me so I could duplicate dark tethers. Unfortunately for us, time is ticking, which means we won't be getting the living logs if we want to make it to the Inkblights right as they spawn. The sooner I get them out of the way, the sooner I can continue eliminating bosses off my list. As we were heading towards the ruins, I spotted a nightmare fissure across a gap, which became a host for the Dreadstone outcrop. I lit up the area, jumped the gap, and proceeded to fight for my life. For those of you who don't know, these are planar enemies, which make them that much more dangerous than regular enemies, since we don't even have any planar armor, except for the measly amount the Dreadstone helmet gives us, of course. To make matters worse, we aren't allowed to make a single positioning mistake, because Raspier, the big one, has a jump attack that deals 120 physical damage, along with 120 planar damage. My health bar of 125 doesn't stand a chance, so we need to be extra careful not to get one-shot. That wasn't too difficult, but it certainly felt dangerous. The bone armor made that so much easier too, I'm not gonna lie. It feels very questionable to treat the Inkblight Trio like a boss, but I wanted to fight them anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Boss or not, we now have them out of the way, which means it's time to return to the surface and craft our late game items. Although I didn't get to make more deconstruction staffs, I still had one sitting at base, which was more than good enough for what I wanted. The Void Cowl, the Shadow Reaper, and the Umbrella. as well as the repair kits, of course. From there, I spent a few minutes repairing my sanity and reorganizing my chests a little bit. Brief moments afterwards, we heard a very familiar sound. It's showtime. The Bearger is spawning, and it's at the perfect time as well. I couldn't be any more ready. The Bearger has received a new attack, as well as a buff to his ground slam in Uncompromising Mode. It's been so long since we've actually fought a boss with new attacks, so I'm really glad we finally get to see something new. That fight went very smoothly, but there's no time to celebrate just yet. The armored Bearger is next. None of the Bearger buffs translate over to the armored Bearger, sadly, but that's alright for me, because I'm very good against this boss. Wow, we absolutely demolished those two. This setup with the Shadow Reaper and Bone Armor is disgustingly powerful, especially with our Shadow Alignment perks. Both our weapon and base damage ramp up until we get hit, which is why the Bone Armor synergizes so well with this combo. Anyways, we spent the day gathering rocks and stuff. We also had a Hound attack, which we made short work of. On our way back to base, I decided to summon the Eye of Terror since I happen to have the terrarium on me. This boss has been given a brand new attack in UM, where it shoots eggs directly at you. Other than that, fighting this boss is a breeze. That was such an easy fight. No surprise there. We are so powerful that we beat the Eye of Terror in less than 30 seconds. From there, I went to base and reorganized my inventory. Then I grabbed some pickaxes and journeyed towards the Lunar Rift. I wanted to collect some pure brilliance, but on the way there, I spotted something more important. This is a great opportunity to get yet another boss out of our way. Let's see if the possessed Varg can take us. The tricky part about fighting the Varg is the constant stream of hounds getting thrown your way. We need to find a way to land hits on the Varg while interacting with the other hounds as little as possible. That got kinda scary when I realized how much damage I was actually taking. I didn't think so at the time, but I actually could have died there. If I got hit by the Frost Breath attack a single time, I probably would have gotten one shot. I guess it's a good thing that didn't happen. Anyways, I managed to get the Pure Brilliance before the rift closed up. Then I planted some saplings and stuff in hopes that I could get some deadly Bright Shades to spawn, which happened literally instantly. With that, I got my hands on the materials I needed to craft a Brightsmithy kit, along with one of my favorite items of all time, the Bright Shade Smasher. Without wasting any more time, I walked over to the scrapyard where the next boss fight was waiting for me. I've only ever fought the Scrappy Werepig like 3 times before this, so I'm not the most experienced with it. That being said, we've got some very strong gear, so I'm feeling pretty confident. I don't know why, but I kinda assumed that I could run behind Wagstaff's junk to block his charging attack. I guess that doesn't work. That fight wasn't too bad. The Scrappy Werepig doesn't really drop anything I'm interested in right now though, but it's whatever. The next boss on my list is the Malbatross, which we still haven't found yet. If you've watched pretty much any other boss rush video, you'll notice that the runners always dread fighting this boss, because getting it to spawn is very RNG dependent, and not very fun either.
Where's Malbatross? Wait, but like, why is Malbatross destroying my life?
Luckily for us, Uncompromising Mode makes this process much less painful, and you'll soon see why. The first step for us will be to find one of Malbatross's spawners, which could appear anywhere in the deep ocean. This normally leads to days of sailing, but fortunately for us, we bumped into it in like 1 minute of sailing. So here's the plan. I'm gonna use this hostile flare I made off camera a day ago to force Malbatross to spawn. Why? Because Uncompromising Mode lets us. That's why. The hostile flare is changed to be allowed to spawn Malbatross if you use the flare near one of its spawners. However, it no longer can be used to spawn Deerclops during winter, which is a rough trade-off for us. All things considered though, I honestly like it. Besides the spawning mechanics, the Malbatross is no different in Uncompromising Mode. That fight felt a bit anticlimactic, but to be honest, what did I expect? The death of the Malbatross leaves us with 3 boss fights left: the Misery Toadstool, Crystal Deerclops, and last but not least, the Moonmaw Dragonfly, the hardest boss Uncompromising Mode has to offer. So when are we able to fight these bosses? Well, unlike a majority of the bosses we've beaten so far, we're forced to wait for these ones. Toadstool was killed back on day 76, which means it won't be respawning until day 96. The Deerclops can't be forced out with the hostile flare, which means we'll have to sit and wait until it eventually spawns, and that leaves us with the last one, the Moonmaw Dragonfly. The spawning conditions for this guy are very specific, those being that it must be a full moon and it must be during summer. Since we are on the first day of winter, let's forget about him for now and focus our energy on the other two first. I don't know when Deerclops is spawning, so I'll have to kill some time until Toadstool respawns. After setting up some mini signs for my chests, I decided to pay a quick visit to the caves so I could locate where Toadstool's other spawners are beforehand. Once that was done, all there was left to do was wait. These things are abominables, by the way, and they can spawn from snow piles if you ignore them for long enough. They can be pretty deadly if they catch you unarmored, but they're no match for us with the gear we have right now. Once I knew Toadstool would respawn, I caught and caged a canary down in the caves, and once again, we wait. The canary should be poisoned by now. Let's grab it and fight misery. On our way to Toadstool, it started raining acid. This normally wouldn't be much of a problem for us, since we have the umbrella, but that item is bugged in uncompromising mode. The protective dome doesn't work against acid rain, so we had to come up with something else. Because of this, we went back to the surface and crafted as many slimy salves as we could, as an alternate method to combat acid rain. By the time we made it back down there though, the acid rain had already stopped, so it kinda made everything feel pointless. Nevertheless, we were able to build the exact same setup as last time. My strategy for fighting the Misery Toadstool is the exact same as the regular one. The main difference here is that this time I have a much better weapon. That fight took a little under 11 minutes. To be honest, once you've beaten Misery Toadstool with a character that doesn't have any damage multipliers, doing it with Wolfgang is going to feel so much easier. Killing Misery with WX in my latest series took like 24 minutes, which is more than double what our boy Wolfgang can do. Playing Wolfgang definitely feels like a cheat code sometimes, with how powerful his damage multiplier really is. Anyways, let's head back up to the surface and... No way. I can't believe he's already spawning. Wow. I couldn't have asked for any better timing than that. I guess it means we won't have to wait any longer. Without further ado, let's get this boss out of the way. Remember during our last encounter with Deerclops that I said that there were 3 variants. This is another one of them. This variant has an alternate laser attack. Laser or not, Deerclops is still going to be easy. Now, it's time for the older brother to take its place. What? That stupid bat is eating all the loot. Oh my god. It ate the eyeball, man. I'm literally never getting that back. Whatever. I guess I'll have to channel my inner rage at the crystal Deerclops instead. I think that made me feel a bit better. Now let's end this fight. Here and now. And just like that, every single boss, except for the Moonmaw Dragonfly, has been defeated. Since there are actually 2 mutually exclusive summer bosses, it's impossible to beat 100% of them before the second summer, which starts on day 126. If we ignore that one, then in just 103 days, we've managed to eliminate the entire roster of bosses, which is a personal record for me. Of course, we're still going to be fighting the Moonmaw in this video. The run isn't over or anything. I just wanted to establish a milestone that isn't capped by the day 126 limit. This number can definitely be improved, and I'm very curious to see how low it could potentially be brought down if much better players than me decided to give it a try. Anyways, let's turn our attention back to the run at hand. We've killed every boss except for the Moonmaw, and now we have to wait at least 22 days just for it to spawn. The question is, how exactly do we spend our time? This video is dragging out to be very long, so I'll keep it brief. The time spent while waiting can be grouped into 3 sections. First, we upgraded the forward postern so we could change from a shadow alignment to lunar alignment. I did this to show off what the other side of the skill tree could do with the people who were viewing at the time. That being said, I won't be going into too much detail in this video, so what you need to know is that we got our max health back. We can only be in mighty form if our hunger is above 225, and that my mighty strikes were 50% cheaper instead of the leaps. Afterwards, we decided to kill the celestial champion again. Why? Well, partially because I was bored, but also because if I killed CC on day 116, then that would make the first day of summer be a full moon, which would guarantee that Moonmaw spawns as soon as physically possible. The fight was a success, so it's time to move on to the third thing we did, base building. With several days left, I decided to work on decorating my base, making sure the turf looked good. I added some new structures, walls, and more. This is what me and chat, but mostly me, came up with in the end. I'd say it looks pretty good. I'm very happy with it. Anyways, after over a season of waiting, it's finally time for the moment that we've all been waiting for. It's time for day 126. That's weird. Why is Moonmaw spawning so early? I thought to myself, not realizing that this was about to be the weirdest day of the run. See, I knew the boss was guaranteed to spawn today because it was a full moon. However, Moonmaw usually waits for the night to actually begin before spawning, so this was highly unusual. That is not Moonmaw? No way. Why did Wiltfly spawn instead? I asked around, and to this day, nobody, not even the people who coded this boss, have any idea why this happened. The Wilting Dragonfly is specifically designed to only spawn if the current summer doesn't have a full moon, or at least that's what I've been led to believe after over 600 hours with this mod. Does this mean the run is doomed? Did I do all of this for nothing? Do we really have to wait another 70 days just for the chance to fight a single boss? It sure looks like it. I destroyed the Wiltfly the same way my hopes and dreams had been destroyed. But as I walked back to base, missing a huge chunk of my health bar, I still had a sliver of hope. There's still a chance, I told myself. The full moon hasn't happened yet. All I can do now is sit tight and wait. Oh my god. It's actually happening. I don't know why, but at this point, I don't even care anymore. Let's get back to that patch of Savannah, because I don't want Moonmaw to nuke this beautiful base that I built. The Moonmaw transforms our sanity into lunacy, which is why I made sure to lower my sanity and bring a knight armor. Without further ado, it's time for our final battle. Wish me luck. The Moonmaw is surrounded by a bunch of glass lavae, which we must first destroy if we want to gain an opportunity to attack her. Whoops. I forgot I actually have to pay attention to my hunger with this version of Wolfgang. It's a good thing this happened while the boss was distracted though, because that could have been a disaster. I'm starting to throw in some Mighty Strikes whenever I get the chance. With the skill tree the way it is, a Mighty Strike consumes 25 mightiness and deals 4 times physical and planar damage. Once you bring the Moonmaw down to 4,000 health, the glass lavae regenerate, and they will be thrown at you, 2 at a time. after 127 days, it's finally over. With that, I'd like to officially declare this day count to be the world record for the fastest anyone has completed all bosses in UM, since no one else has probably ever attempted this. But the thing is, I can't actually do that because I lied to you guys. See, the run hasn't gone as smoothly as it seemed to in the video. The unfortunate truth here is that this run has actually been very scuffed and it is not legitimate at all. Throughout the run, we've actually been forced to roll back several times. There have been several occasions where we've either crashed or have been unable to launch the world due to the world being corrupted. But on top of that, we actually got killed once before, and that was during the second Celestial Champion fight. In a couple of days, or maybe a week, I'll be uploading a video that highlights everything that went wrong in the run. If you wish to see anything for yourself, you can check out the VODs on my channel. They've been posted and available for over a month before this video was even released. As I've said before, this wasn't an official speedrun or anything. I mostly just wanted to do this for fun, and I believe a boss rush video is something this beautiful mod deserved. I also hope that the devs consider adding a legitimate way to spawn both the Wildfly and Moonmaw in the first summer, because at the moment it's not an intended feature and I have not been able to recreate it. Killing all but one of the bosses before the second summer happens was very doable. Even with the countless things going wrong in the mid game, we still managed to do it with over 20 days to spare. If this gets implemented, you can expect me to attempt this run again, with the goal of finishing every boss before the second winter even starts. I think it's possible, and it would be some insane content. With all that being said, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.